Go ahead, Rabbi Yitzchak. Thank you so much for coming back to be with us.
So my story is like Radner said, I was learning in Palo for like 10 years, and we got to a situation where I needed to make some type of parnasa. We got an email out of nowhere, Mamash Ben Hashemaim, uh, about this course, and my wife said, you know, what is it? Like maybe you'll like it. You don't know what it is. Like I had absolutely no idea what it could be. I didn't really know that much about computers that I thought that I would like. There was like a list of topics that they were going to be covering, and I didn't even understand what the topics were about. Um, but my wife said, you know, just take it, and you know, what's the worst that'll happen? Maybe something good will come out of it. And Baruch Hashem, it really it definitely paid off. It was an incredible decision. The first year, so the course is going for 1 year, so I was really much I really invested myself in making sure that I understood the course material, and I tried to take it as far as I can given what limited knowledge I had, but the instructors helped to you know, keep that moving. And it was really interesting. I found it really interesting. I'm sure the course has changed over the years since then, but it's I mean the basic material is still the same, and it's a really interesting field. um and
Just to let you know, Yitzchak, my students are like halfway through, so they're already hackers. So
oh
they're
yeah, very nice,
insiders.
very nice. So I'm sure then you already know. It's really interesting, and it's been just a really fun, um, a fun ride up until today. I started off in you know, pretty low down on the totem pole, and over time I got more experience, and now I'm working at Palo Alto Networks. It's Palo Alto Networks. In case anybody has not heard of it, it's a international company that's wasn't it's they're mainly known for their firewalls, but in recent, like 2 years ago, they came out with XIM, which is their SIM. I hope I think maybe by now you're familiar with the SIM for security event logs. Um, the analysts use a SIM in order to search for suspicious activity or to investigate activity that they found. Um, and so Palo Alto Networks came out with their own SIM, which is basically just putting together a bunch of different products. And my job there um, is to ingest the logs. So basically, um, you have all of these network devices that I'm sure you've learned about, and now the idea is to make it now practical. So you have all of these different, like especially in major companies. So I work for Palo Alto Networks. So my job is I'm on the team that's invested in securing Palo Alto Networks itself. It's a huge company. We have like 15,000 people all over the world. I think we have about 1,000 here in Israel, and most of them are in America, and then there's a lot in India. Um, and it's a really big company, and you could imagine we have tons and tons of different devices. I'm actually working right now on a list of about 300 different apps that the company is using, and I'm trying to, you know, get logs from there into the SIM. So it's one thing to know that there's a firewall that's blocking traffic, but it's another thing to take those logs and to make them practical, to make them to be able to search through them and find suspicious activity, or go through your Active Directory logs, your DC logs, and find suspicious activity or investigate suspicious activity that you found. Of course, we're talking to the blue team. So that's where I come in. So my job is to figure out how to get logs from there, the logs that we want, meaning not, you know, system logs from a vCenter that nobody really cares about, and, you know, some process is running and nobody cares about that process, but to find actual logs, like somebody copied this VM into some other place and they weren't supposed to do that. You want to find those logs because those are the logs that the SOC is going to be interested in, that the analysts are going to be interested in. And you want to take those logs, you want to ingest them and to make them available to the analysts. So it's important to know, to be able to, first of all, figure out how to ingest different types of logs, like what methods that you have available, and also to know what are the logs that are going to be important to the analysts, because otherwise you're just going to inflate your ingestion bill and your storage bill for nothing, which is always something that you have to struggle with. So it's important to have an idea of what analysts need to do their job, and also to have a more broader understanding of how to, your different methods of getting those logs into the SIM. So that's what I am doing today.
Yitzchak, we haven't really talked to the students about the SOC and what goes on in the SOC and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
so go ahead and introduce that.
Sure. So there are different ways that SOCs are implemented. And different companies have different methods of doing it. But basically, the SOC is the prime mover and shaker on the blue team. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the red and the blue team. So the SOC is involved with analyzing incidents, responding to incidents. Generally, in bigger companies, there's not really a separate incident response team, at least not like the analysts are expected to know how to respond to most incidents, unless it's like some huge incident that we need to like bring in other teams for. But generally, the analysts are expected to know how to resolve incidents, or most incidents. So the analyst's job is to, so we have in the SIM, we have alerts. The alerts are built off of different events. You have, let's say, some type of login. Let's say you had a login from a country that you didn't expect there to be one, right? Or you had a login from a bunch of different countries within a very short period of time. That's the famous impossible traveler alert. So those are type of alerts that we would create, or much more complicated ones. We have now we have a Tel Aviv SOC, and we have a American SOC, US SOC, which is based in California. And the Tel Aviv SOC, which Chava Kanak now has been a part of for the past couple of years. The Tel Aviv SOC has been working on Okta logs. Okta is an SSO, it's a single sign-on, and it's responsible for everything that we connect to, right? We have many, many different apps. Besides for the 300 that I'm working on, there are many, many, many other apps, both custom internal apps and like just SaaS applications, and just a lot going on. And instead of having separate identities, separate users for every single app, so we have a single sign-on, which is called Alto, and it's responsible for giving us access to all of those different apps. So you can imagine that as the point where everyone is connecting to all of those different resources within the company, it's going to be a very sensitive application, and it's very important that we have eyes on that app very closely, that we're looking at it very closely, because if someone gets through our Okta, then they basically have access to any of the apps that that user was assigned to, which can be anything. It could be access to our Active Directory. It could be access to our DNS. It could be anything. It could be access to firewalls, and literally anything in the company. So the SOC. So in our company in Palo Alto, the SOC is responsible for creating those alerts. And what they do is they'll investigate different types of methods that you can attack Okta or try to bypass the authentication methods of Okta. And then they'll create alerts off of those different methods. So if they find someone who tried to bypass that authentication method, they will get an alert. The SOC will be alerted that this happened with the information about the user, and And once that alert's triggered, it's assigned to somebody, to one of the analysts in the SOC, and the analyst's job is to investigate. So they may first of all search where that user is going to, what that user tried to do. Did that user try to access like 15 different apps within a span of like 5 minutes, which is not something that you'd expect somebody to do, but it is something you'd expect somebody who's looking for something to do. There's After that, the analyst may get in touch with that user or with that user's manager to find out if that user is supposed to be doing what they're doing. We have a lot of also automation. So some of these activities are actually automated. Some of the enrichment is automated with something called a SOAR, SOAR, which stands for something automation something. I don't remember all of them. I just know it has to do with automation. And it's very common. It's very common nowadays to find. And it's basically this platform which is integrated in XIM in our SIM. It's integrated as part of the SIM. The same is true for Microsoft Sentinel. And basically, you can run what are called playbooks to automate different things programmatically. So you can create programs that will automatically, let's say, throw a certain IP into a firewall block list, so that you don't have to go every single time that you have somebody scanning your ports or something. You don't have to block them by hand every single time, because that happens like 24 hours a day. So you can, let's say, create a playbook that will do that automatically. If you the possibilities are literally endless. We have playbooks that basically sync any type of code or like password or tokens that are passed through Slack. So we have access to, our automation has access to our Slack, and anytime a different product detects that a token or a password was shared in Slack, it sends its logs to XIM, to our SIM. Our SIM throws an alert. The alert catches it, sends it to our automation. Our automation picks it up and goes into Slack and deletes that message within Slack. So this way we don't have issues with people sharing tokens through Slack, because first of all, it's searchable. And if somebody gets access to Slack who should not have access to that user, which has happened, they can grab that token and then use it for themselves, or grab that password and look at what the conversation was, and then go and use that for themselves. So there's really so much that you can do with automation, and our team in Palo Alto is in terms of our SOC adjacent team, that's our biggest team, because there's so many things that you can do. We have another sub team that works on auto remediation. So if we have a product that detects open SSH ports, open RDP, open whatever, so we have our auto remediation team, which will automatically creates these remediation playbooks that automatically will close those. I actually got a message today from one of the companies that we recently acquired, and he was complaining that he has his own account in, I think it's AWS, and he keeps trying to access it, and somebody keeps closing off his SSH ports, and he needs them to be able to do whatever he's doing. There's no resources in there, so he don't have to worry about it, but he needs that SSH access, and it keeps getting closed on him. So that obviously is our automation that's closing off his SSH ports. And so he asked me to speak to the auto remediation team to get that fixed. So they're not going to be on until tomorrow, so I'm not going to be able to until tomorrow. But the point is that we have those capabilities, which are very, very important in protecting a corporate, any business, especially larger ones. I mean, we've had the things that go on today are just unimaginable. Like, our company is constantly in touch with the FBI. We've had agents contact us about activity they've found so far harmless from different ATPs that were, I think, scanning some of our IP addresses. Thankfully, because we have other products that are that are also keeping track of all of our IP addresses. So we knew what it was scanning and we knew that it was okay. But the fact is that these things are happening. And those are the things that the blue team by large, like in general, and the SOC in particular, are responsible for. And it's a really far-reaching job that involves a lot of different teams, a lot of different, I would say, support teams, because there are so many different aspects to it. So besides for my job to make sure that the correct logs are coming in, and then we have the automation team's job that works with, blocking things that does, or enriching logs, or whatever it is that, the multitude of things that they provided, a bunch of people working on it. And the auto remediation team. There's also a cloud team. We have a team just for dealing with different cloud accounts. We have about 20 different management accounts in each of AWS, Azure, and Google. Google is so we have each one of them. Now each of those 20 has a bunch of different sub organizations, sub accounts, sub projects in GCP, they're called. So with literally thousands of different projects within those three major cloud platforms, literally thousands. And there's so much activity going on. So you need a team just that's dedicated just to making sure that we can resolve incidents that happen within the cloud, because we need somebody that has access to the cloud. It's not Hefker. It's not just like, okay, something happened in the cloud, let me just go log into that project and see what happened. You can't do that. There's everybody is limited access, and we need to make sure we have a team to make sure that we have access, that can provide access when we need it, or if we need to upgrade our access, that they can help with that as well. If we need to onboard, when I was working on a project to onboard all of our cloud organizations, our 3 cloud organizations, we had our major projects and organizations, like our major accounts, were onboarded into XIM. But we still had many, like maybe 40 or 50 organizations that we just had no visibility into. So I had to work with our cloud team, and together we onboarded those accounts. I knew what needed to be done on the XIM side, and they knew what it needed to be done on the cloud side, and we worked together to be able to make sure that we're ingesting logs, the correct logs, into XIM. And it's important. We had a case where we had account takeovers in Azure, where somebody got access to an account, nothing important over there. They moved some resources out of the account, and then they put up a bunch of virtual machines, I believe. They set up some crypto mining within Azure account. So I've had a lot of situations where different teams within Palo Alto, because of course Palo Alto is a very big company, and not everybody's on the security team. We have just a regular IT teams. We have a bunch of regular IT teams that don't necessarily have any understanding of what's necessary from a security standpoint. And when it came to when I would come to them and say, look, we want to onboard your organization within AWS or whatever, they would be like, I don't really have anything there. There's nothing sensitive. What's the big deal? Maybe, last time somebody touched it and they caused the problem. And I would tell them, look, there may be no resources now within your account, but if somebody gets access to that account and that shouldn't have access, and they decide to set up a bunch of crypto miners, guess who's going to get billed? It's going to be us. So even if you don't have anything sensitive there, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to monitor it. We still want to have eyes in there, because we need to be able to identify activity that is suspicious, such as that. So it's really, really far-reaching. The bigger the company, I think the more that's involved, and conversely, the bigger the company, the more resources you have to perform your job. I mean, Chava's been on the security. So last year I was in part of the technical marketing team, which means I would go out and help companies that wanted to adopt XIM. I would basically help them adopt it. I would work with them on understanding how the platform works and how to connect their resources to the platform. Chava, though, who's been in, I don't know if she spoke here yet,
No.
but no, not yet. Well, she's been busy. She just had a baby a few months ago, so she's.
No.
But she's been on the security team the entire time, and they provide her with SANS courses, I think once or twice a year, which is a huge investment. So without this course that you're taking now, neither of us would be in Palo Alto. I'm sure you've spoken about it before, and where you can go from this course is just really, really incredible. I mean, we're talking about people that have been in the field for 7 years or longer, literally experts in the field, and you have people from this course who are standing toe to toe with them and excelling. So it starts over here, and where there's no limit to where it ends. There really is not. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, be happy to answer. Hopefully I can hear you.
I encourage the students to ask questions. Thank you, Yitzchak, for giving us an introduction. I'm curious, when you were on the technical marketing team, did you go to meetings in real places, or how was that?
Yeah. I actually, my first time in Texas.
Oh, you went to
Texas? Yeah. I had to fly to Texas for a week. All expense paid. Obviously, the company pays for all of the travel.
And the kosher food.
What?
And the kosher food.
Yeah. So the kosher food was a little bit difficult. I had to travel out of the hotel by what's it called, the Uber, to go to the supermarket to get kosher food. But it was fine. And it was an experience. So travel. If I would still be on that team, I would have traveled to many other interesting places. One of them, India, which I'm not sure I would have wanted to do, but that I would have definitely gotten a lot more miles under my belt. It's really interesting, and it was fun. It was fun going out to meet those different companies and see how their internals work compared to what I'm familiar with, and learn new things as well. It was really fun. Yeah.
Tell us, so in the position you're in now, give us like a day in the life. Like what is your work day like? And how often do you go to the office, or you work from home, or what do you do?
So I actually try to finagle my way out of working from home as frequently as possible. Apparently, because there's not enough seating in the office right now, we have like 4 or 5 floors in a building in Tel Aviv. Apparently, there's not enough seating because they've been bringing in new people all the time. Even within the security team, I know that the wider IT or high tech is suffering, but we're not suffering. We're bringing in. We have outstanding positions open for a number of things. So the Israeli team moved from, I think, 750 to 1,000. I think they onboarded like 250 people in the past few years. Wow. So So they're kind of running out of. They kind of ran out of room, and because of that, our return to office policy was delayed, and then we got into the war, and so there's no. So we're not required yet to go in. Although there are some teams that their manager will require them to go in. But my manager is actually in the US, so he doesn't really care if I go in or not. And it's actually better for him if I don't, because I work, most of my work is with the US. So I can start my day later, I have to end it later, but because most of my work is with the US, there's not really any reason for me to go into the office in Tel Aviv, and I have no one to talk to or do anything with. So there is, though, in the US there is a return to office, and at least I think 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah. And so what I do now, day to day, most of it is onboarding new applications. There are so many applications that we use throughout the company. So I'm responsible for the logs that are coming, that come from all of those applications. And because there are so many, there's always some issue going on, either some application or machine or something is not sending logs well, something happens, or I need to onboard a new application, which is something I'm also in the middle of working on, all of those, that list of 300 apps. So I'll either be reaching out to one of the IT teams or whoever it is that manages a given application, speaking to them about what we need to do, what's the application for, what does it do, what type of logs can we expect to find over there, and then I will either speak to the product team about if we need to create a new type of integration for that application. I'll be parsing logs. Parsing logs is really important because you can have your raw log and it's just not searchable. I don't know if you guys have heard of Splunk at all. I don't know if you've worked with Splunk at all. Splunk is like a very famous SIM, and I think they have a free version, which is why I mentioned it. But basically, you can have your raw log, and to be able to search through literally billions of logs would be very, very resource intensive, because there are just so many logs. And to be able to find exactly the point of information you want each and every time, it would just be really resource intensive. So what we do is we take those logs, and this is common across all SIMs. We take those logs and we parse them, which means that we extract the important, or sometimes that means the entire log. We extract the important data points from the log and we put them into columns, into tables. So if you're familiar with like SQL, where you have like tables, you have your columns and you have your rows. So that's how pretty much all SIMs work. You have columns and rows, and the idea is to take the data from that log and put them into columns and rows in a way that will make it, first of all, easy to understand what you're looking at, because if it's just a name and an IP address, you have no idea what the log is for. So you have to extract important information, relevant information. And you also want to make sure that everything is extracted, and you have to make sure that it's done well. So that's something that's across all SIMs that everybody does that. So that's another thing that I have to do. Now that could take a lot of time because not all logs are the same. Not all logs come in the same format. There are some formats that are very simple to do that with, like JSON, JSON, is a very popular log format. CEF, CEF, common event format, I think it was originally ArcSight, is also a very common format. But there are some that are not. There are some that are just comma separated values, CSV, which can be very difficult to parse. Some that don't even have that. They're just space separated. It could get really complicated at times, especially if you're talking about custom logs or custom apps. So it's important to be able to do that well. And I don't know if you've spent any time learning regex, maybe for Python or for other things that you may have needed. It's a great tool to have under your belt because it makes searching for things much simpler. So if you've gotten any familiarity with it, or if you don't, then try to get some, because it'll help you no matter what you're doing, whether you're on the red team or the green or the blue team or the purple team.
What's it called, Yitzchak?
Regex, REGEX. So that stands for regular expression. And the way it works is you can, and it's possible to use regex in Python. The way it works is you create a pattern and you tell whatever it is that you're working with to search for that particular pattern. The patterns look super complicated when you're writing them. They're like full of like dots and slashes and all of these weird symbols, but once you understand the logic behind it, you understand it's actually very simple, and it allows you to capture specific information within a wider pattern of information that you expect to find. And we use it, I mean, all over the place. We searching for tokens when we needed to search for tokens in Slack or passwords in Slack. So the team used regex to be able to identify when somebody is creating is pasting a token into Slack, because you can't really look for each token individually. You need to find some identifying features, and they use it to look for headers or emails that are sent, and it really all over. It's really something, whether you're on the red team or the blue team, it's something that you're gonna bump into it. So it's worth knowing. And it's not so complicated to learn. It's pretty simple. It's just a small thing. So yeah, that's mostly what I do, making sure that logs are coming in well, making sure that we don't have any delays in logs when you're running an alert. So the way alerts work is they're usually looking back at a certain time frame. So like, let's say the past 10 minutes, the past hour of logs that came in, the past day of logs that came in. If a log comes in that was created now, and it doesn't come in for 3 hours from now, and the alert that you created is only looking back at the past 10 minutes, you're never going to see that log, because by the time your alert reaches the ingestion time for that log, it's the creation time of that log is going to be 3 hours back. So your alert is going to ignore it. So it's very important to have logs that are on time. And so keeping track of that is really important. The logs are, they made a video series about different aspects of the SOC. So the logs they identified as like the lifeblood of the SOC. It's the thing that keeps the SOC running, because everything is based off of a log ultimately. So making sure that the logs are there properly in their proper time is really important. Besides, those are most of the things that I do. I also, like, let's say, help people writing queries, and different teams may come to me or ask me to onboard something. And there's a lot of things going on. We just migrated up like 2,100 firewalls. We had our internal networking section just took all of their firewalls and put them into our data lake. And so I had to work with them to make sure that all of those 2,100 firewalls are sending logs properly into XIM after they did that migration. So there's always some activity going on, some action, and that's basically the type of stuff that I'm working on.
Very interesting. So 2 questions. One, you're on blue team, and blue team makes me think of the SOC and like 24/7. And I know you're Shomer Shabbos and everything. And so people are always curious about that. Is Shabbos and Yontiv a barrier to getting a job in SOC?
So there are some places where it can be. There are some places, and there are some places where it's not at all. In particular, Palo Alto, they have the US team and we have the Tel Aviv team. So they take on Shabbos and we take on for them Sunday. So it works out well. Then they also don't have, because we have those 2 teams, and I think they're actually planning to open up another one in India, so that we'll have, like, each team will have their own like 8-hour time slot, which is possible because we're such a big company, international company. In smaller companies, usually you'll have rotation. So sometimes you'll be on a day shift, sometimes you'll be on a night shift. Because we're such a big company, so we don't have to do that. So we have the US team has their regular 8-hour day, and we have our regular 8-hour day. And then there's like a small overlapping period in between on both ends. And it just makes life much easier. So again, there are companies here, even in Eretz, where that could be a problem. There are also companies where they're accommodating and it's not a problem. And I suspect that in the US that it's less of a problem, because they have to be maybe more accommodating for religious requirements than we do over here.
I wanted to ask about that. It's been a rough year in Israel, to say the least.
Yeah.
And there's, a culture war going on and so forth. And how does that affect your relationships to coworkers in the company? Do you feel uncomfortable, stuff like that? Tell me something about that.
Not at all. Not at all. Everybody's been very, very, very sweet. I've never had any type of problem. The atmosphere, first of all, in Palo Alto is just an incredible atmosphere, but I've never had any sort of culture problem between me and another coworker. Everybody's been very sweet, very accommodating, and understanding. Even
Maybe they don't know you're a Haredi because you don't look it.
I actually had one of my previous coworkers. He asked me for a picture because he wanted to show someone that I'm really Haredi. So yeah, that has definitely not been any problem. I think when you first meet with them, like when you first become part of a team, so there's always that like two different cultures, and there's a little bit of like, how is he going to react to this, how is he going to react to that, and etc. But once you get to know each other, they're just wonderful. Like I have a good friend from my previous team, totally not from at all, but he's invited me to his chasna in a couple months, in 6 months, I think. And he wrote to me in Chafvav Elul. So he, totally not from at all, but he was just been doing miluim for a few months, and the atmosphere is really great. The truth is, I actually enjoy working with Israelis more so than with Americans, because the culture in Israel, the work culture in Israel, is so, I'd like to say laid back, with the caveat that Israelis are maybe not necessarily always laid back, but just in the high-tech world, there's so much camaraderie and friendship, that you can't really, I don't really see that as much with the American teams that we work with within the same company. Like when we'd get into a meeting with the Israeli teams, so before anything, the guy that's in the miluim, and he's in the army, and he still got onto the call, so everybody stops. How you doing? How's it going? How you feeling? Everybody has to first know how this guy is doing, and then we have to schmooze a little bit, and then finally we'll get to the details. The American side of the company, there's no jokes. You get onto the call and you talk about about business, and that's it. So it's a lot more comfortable working with Israelis. I find it very nice and very warm. Which is not to say that it's a problem working with Americans. Just it's a different culture. It's more Heimish.
Yitzchak, you, like you said, you started from nothing. You didn't have background in computers. Our students, a lot of them are young women in the New York area. And
I just want to say that my biggest recommendation is for women when they're younger to get into this job, into this field, because I think that is where the biggest potential is. So for all of the younger women that are here, I definitely recommend that you put in all your kachas into it, because where you can go from, first of all, the fact that you're younger and getting into it. I started like 5 years ago, I think, when I was like well into my 30s. And Baruch Hashem, I've still gotten very far. But as a younger, and if you're planning to support a husband, this is definitely something that you'll be able to do, because it as long as you invest in it, invest yourself in it, there's no end. And younger guys as well, the same is true for younger guys as well. Just my point is, if you're planning to make a parnasa that you can support somebody with, this is definitely the place to be, without any question. And for anybody older, my age, there's no yish. There's still plenty that you can. There's plenty room for you to grow. Baruch Hashem, I'm making a nice parnasa, and to support my family. It could not be a better time. I'm telling you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mamash put this course right where it needed to be for me, and it brought me literally. everything literally worked out in a perfect time because of this course. So yeah, there's still plenty of growth. I see somebody.
Yeah, Nate, go ahead, Nate. What do you want to ask?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you said that you got into cybersecurity in your 30s?
I was I think around 35, 30.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Usually when you hear people making career changes, you hear them making it earlier on, but like I'm curious, what were you doing before cybersecurity?
In Palo.
What's up?
I was studying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was
So
studying like religious studies. And the truth is, I was asked about it. I was asked about what, why there's a, like on my resume when I first, I think when I moved to my current team, they asked me um, what, why there's such a huge gap in my resume. I explained to them, it's a cultural thing. We have this place where we study for a few years, and they were totally understanding. Because I was able to prove that I knew my stuff. So again, as long as you have that knowledge, that's why I keep saying to invest. As long as you invest that time in furthering your education in cybersecurity. Even today, I mean, when I was taking this course, as far as I know, it's still 5 hours every Sunday. I spent the rest of the week studying as well. Like it wasn't just, okay, I got the homework, then I'm done. I would be studying for like 8 hours a day in order to increase my knowledge and to get to that point. So the fact that I invested is what made it that I was able to keep moving. And any company, as long as you have the knowledge, as long as you can prove that you have the knowledge, despite what they'll usually say something like you need to have X amount of years experience with whatever. But in most cases, I won't say in all cases, but in most cases, as long as you can prove that you have that knowledge, you'll have a foot in the door. So yeah, that was the case over here where I had that gap. I did make the career change, but because I had proven myself, they just overlooked it. They didn't even care.
Wow, thank you for the advice. Appreciate it.
Yitzchak, what specific certifications would you recommend for the students, as starting out?
It really depends where you want to go. I think one of the biggest questions is where in cybersecurity do you want to go to? So that's a really difficult question to answer because it really depends. I'm sure that you guys know that there are a lot of different fields in cybersecurity. My wife took the same course and she's doing something completely different than I am. A course that would work for her would be almost useless for me. So it's really kind of hard to answer that. There are a lot of good red team courses out there. I mean, once you have the knowledge that you've gained from this course, you can definitely pivot to many of the other courses that are out there, the more expensive ones and the not so expensive ones. That's without a question. On the blue side as well, there are courses you have from the company that EC Council has a bunch of courses on the blue team. If you get a job in a company that provides you with courses, you'll eventually be able to hit some SANS courses, which usually cost like $10,000 a course. It's a $8,000 course with another $1,000 test, and the whole course is about a week long. So they're known for being very expensive, but they're good courses. Once you have the requisite knowledge, once you have the base that you'll gain from over here. So they have courses for all the different teams. And the truth is that it is important to, whether you go into the red team or you go into the blue team, it's important to have knowledge of the other side as well, because you're always going to be interacting with them. It's constant. I mean, I know that the analysts are taking courses in pen testing, because they want to know what attack vectors they might expect to find from our own internal red team. We have a red team that's, constantly testing our security, and so our analysts they take courses in pen testing to be able to find new attack vectors that they never thought of or whatever. On the other hand, we have the red team that needs to know what is the blue team looking for so that they can try to circumvent it. And there's kind of like this tension always back and forth, not like a negative tension, but like a tension of like, we need to try to find you, we need to try to circumvent you, and it just keeps going back and forth. And then we have our once a month conversation with them where we sit down and we just, okay, the red team did this particular test against us. They need to know. They'll often suggest to us, if we didn't spot them, they'll tell us, well, we were able to get into here, you're probably missing logs from this particular resource, and you might want to look into getting those logs. Because they know what the blue team needs to do, they can provide that type of advice. So we have our discussions where we work with them and to understand how we can better improve, because ultimately that's the point of both teams. And we even have a purple team that works. Not sure exactly what they do different than the red team and the blue team alone, but we do have a purple team. Not a very large one, but there is one. Yeah. So regarding the tests, regarding the courses, the CH is a great place to start if you're looking for something. It's very, very well known throughout the cybersecurity world, but that's the very basic in terms of broadest, covering the broadest amount of topics. Where you take it from there is really dependent on what you find interesting in cybersecurity, and there are so many options. Yeah.
So you mentioned CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker. How do you compare that to the Security Plus of CompTIA?
For some reason, I think that most places recognize CEH more so than Security Plus. I get the impression that if you're looking at, most places that will list recommended certifications that they're looking for will list a CEH, not necessarily a Security Plus. I think people are familiar with it, but the people who are in charge of bringing people in seem to be less so, and the CEH will make a slightly better impression than Security Plus, I think. Yeah, but as a course, I think that they're not terribly different from each other.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. If nobody has any other questions, so I'm just going to close by thanking you again, Yitzchak. And it's fascinating, even for me to see your language is becoming really technical and sophisticated. And I've seen your growth over the years, and we're really happy that you're prospering and going weiter. Let me ask you that: in 5 years, will you still be working for Palo Alto and going there? What do you think?
I hope so. The truth is that my manager asked me if I want to become a manager, and I enjoy the technical work more so than the people part of it. So we have two tracks. We have the manager track, or we have what's called the I can't remember what it's called. But basically where you're working in your technical position as opposed to a manager. I like it. I'd rather stay. Where I'd be in 5 years from now, I couldn't tell you.
A combination.
Tell you last year where I would be today. I couldn't tell you 2 years ago where I would have been today. It's just impossible. The way you grow, it's just as long as you keep pushing, it's impossible to know. It's going to be somewhere up, somewhere high. That's all I know.
Okay, Bezrat Hashem, Yishev much bracha v'atzlacha. Regards to Chana and all the family. Chag kosher v'sameach. Great, thank you, Yitzchak. We're going to take a break at 6 o'clock. Let's get together at 10 after 6.
Good day.
Thank you, Yitzchak. All too. Bye-bye.